I worked out how to film, and this was quite difficult. Okay, I'm going to run through quickly, because the meeting didn't work that well, what I kind of want to go through. There's me searching up how to do it. Right, watch this Mr. Everything English video. I've linked it. Put it on 2 times speed, 1.5 times, whatever. But take notes. You have to take notes on it. Write some stuff down. You won't remember it if you don't write it down. And then go back over it after. We'll make sure you definitely remember it, but that's a lot of effort. If you want to do it, you can. Okay, so you sent a message about context. I don't need the 2 chapters anymore. Do I need this? I will link this because it's got some example answers, which I think are all pretty good. You know, they would get probably about at least the worst one there will probably get about 6 anyway. Top one, there's definitely ones that are like 9. I think the first one was quite good. We want to look at those. We want to take points, magpie them. It's a good way to revise. Okay, so I've made you this specific document saying stuff to do over the next 2 weeks or before your exam. Watch the video, take notes. Start to make mind maps or flashcards with the key quotes on them. Now, if you don't like mind maps or flashcards, it can be something else, but you want to make sure you're starting to get down key quotes from other books or key points. Okay, I'm going to get to when I was talking about, key quotes first, okay? You write down the quote and you write why you've chosen that quote. Maybe a theme it relates to or a character it relates to. You know, that's what you have in the mind map. Or on the back of the flashcard, you say the device in it. If it's a language one, if it's a structure one, you say the device in it and you say why you've chosen it. What does it represent? Why has Stevenson used it? Give it a tiny little bit of analysis just so you know why you've chosen that quote. Or if, you know, you don't always have to. If it's pretty obvious why you've chosen it, just write down the technique so you remember the technique. Mind maps or flashcards. Okay, for that. Then structure on that. When we're talking about structure, it's quite hard to find structure within the extracts they give you, right? So, you know, maybe it's, I've lost my question bank. Characters here. It's a long paragraph. Maybe you can find sentence structure if it's long or short. Maybe you can find a list sometimes, you know, but that can be quite hard to do. It's a lot easier to go through and find language points for Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde in the extract. If there's a really clear structure point, take it. But that's why it's important to kind of revise, especially when we're talking about the text as a whole, big structure points that kind of you can mold 2 different questions. So there's a lot of foreshadowing in Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, for example, and he does that to build suspense, to build tension as part of the Gothic novel, right? So if you can find those foreshadowing points, like when we have Mr. Enfield at the start being described as someone that's very loyal right until the end, we can see that he's going to stay loyal until the end. Where we have the foreshadowing with the letters that Dr. Jekyll is going to disappear or die when he gets Lanyon's letter. You know, you can talk about what they represent, okay? And I'll talk about more on that in Thursday's lesson, how to analyse that. So it's good to have these overarching structure points that we know, that we've got locked down, that we can talk about in general, okay? And we can kind of mould to a lot of the questions. It will work for a lot of the questions. Foreshadowing, contrast. You know, you get contrast between characters, and if you talk about how they're structurally contrasted, Dr. Lanyon and our understanding of him is structurally contrasted against our understanding of Dr. Jekyll. That's juxtaposition as well. That's the word, but contrast, the same word. I'll talk about more on that on Thursday, just so I can understand if you're understanding it, because it's quite difficult. But that's what I talk about when I say in the second paragraph, trying to use structure to talk about the text as a whole, because there are these main points in the text that he does. Foreshadowing, pathetic fallacy. Maybe you can talk about how that's structure as well sometimes. Okay, hope that makes a little bit of sense. Next, what else is in our document that I want you to do? Why have I disappeared? I've disappeared, apparently. I might come back. I don't know if you can still hear me. Oh, I'm there. Cool. Then do the same for context, okay? You want to know the context because it'll help to inform your analysis. You'll have to understand why Stevenson is doing something. So you start to make mind maps or flashcards with key contextual points that you're going to take from here. You just do a little bit more research into them very quickly. Not too, because context isn't all that much marks. It's just making sure that you've got a context point that you can slip in. It'll be like 1 sentence, okay? I will put those paragraphs in from there. I know you've read those paragraphs from the last one, these ones. So just look again at how context is used, and then this website, see if you can find out where they put context in. And you'll see it's quite short, very short. Context is only like 6 marks, you know, it says it up here, AO3. Context is only that much of your thing, but you must refer to it. But it's only short, and you can use it. How you use it is just to inform your point, is to back up your analysis, okay? So find those key contextual points, write them down on flashcards or mind maps, and then you have to link them to a theme in the text or a certain point. And I'll talk about how we do that now. So context comes in 3 parts. Historical context, number 1, so everything that's going on around 1886 in Victorian England, their beliefs, their lifestyle, all about the opium dens, maybe look into that a little bit, or just note it down. Physiognomy, this is apparently a word that means people believed at that time you could tell a criminal by their facial features. So if they had like a long nose, or like they were deformed, you know, and you can link that to Mr. Hyde. I can say, oh, well, Jekyll is describing Mr. Hyde in this way because it helps to, because at the time there was a belief in physiognomy. I think that's how you say it. So he's used these descriptions of Mr. Hyde because at the time there was in Victorian England, there was a belief in physiognomy where you could tell criminals by their facial features, highlighting to the reader that actually Mr. Hyde is definitely a criminal. Something like that. That's quite a weak point. But do you see how I've used the context to bolster up my point, to provide more evidence of why it's there? Religion, superstitions, a little bit into that maybe. Understand about the structure of religion, about how they view sins, confession, maybe about how they told people to suppress them, compared against Freudian science, psychoanalysis. Now, don't do a deep dive on Freudian psychoanalysis. Freud actually is the scientist, but he wasn't writing before the book, he wrote after it. But there was a lot of scientific look into this idea about psychoanalysis. You could look at at the time we've got some insane asylums being set up for people that were believed to be going insane, you know, those lock houses. I'll talk about that on Thursday because I can get a little bit more on it. You can look at it as well, try and understand a little bit about it. But religion and Freud or science, religion and science, we're looking at human nature. Okay, in that sense, you want to look at how religion views human nature at the time and how science is trying to view human nature at the time, in a sense of, when I say human nature, religion is your sinful side, and then the side, your righteous side. You're going to aim to be this perfect human and suppress all your sins, all your desires, all your natural, what science calls your natural primal desires. So you need to eat, you need to reproduce, you need to protect yourself. You know, they call those sins. Don't kill, don't have sex outside of marriage, don't I don't know, you know, that type of thing. The rules they have, which are saying, you know, suppress your sins. You may have these desires, but you have to ignore them. You have to suppress them, which is quite unhealthy. And that's what the book shows, is that in Dr. Jekyll, suppressing his sinful side, turning it into Mr. Hyde and ignoring it, it's going to burst out and create all this bad stuff in a bad way. And that is the message of Stevenson. He's saying, no, we should take a more scientific approach. We should understand that it's part of our human nature, it's our primal desires, and we must analyze it and learn how to control them instead of ignoring them and suppressing them. So that's a little bit how you use the context for those two things. Xenophobia is a fear of the other, is what that means. You know, fear of, there's a lot of migration into London at the time from the east, from Jewish communities coming from Europe, and people were a bit skeptical about it. They didn't know these people, so they'd be a little bit scared. We call that xenophobia. It's a fear of the other. And I'll explain again on Thursday how that kind of links to Mr. Hyde. He's kind of this representation of the other. They're using this mysterious character that the people don't really know about to evoke those same feelings the reader would have about this fear of the other people coming into England. Okay? And that creates verisimilitude, illusion of it being real, you know, trying to create the novel to seem more real, based in reality. And if you're using real fears of people in Victorian England, you're going to create a bit more verisimilitude. If you're confused about that, send over some more questions. Okay, he lived in Bournemouth. Autobiographical context is number 2. It's about him himself, okay? And for Science and Religion 1, we'll keep with that as an example. He was a Christian, but then converted into an atheist, proving his defiance of religious structures. That's my context point, okay? And that's how I'm going to use it in my text. I want to talk about how it proves maybe a language device I've taken out that shows Stevenson's criticism of religion. I'd say we know this is a criticism of religion because we know that Stevenson was once a Christian but converted to atheist. It proves that he was very defiant of these religious structures. So that's probably what he's talking about when he has this device in the text or something like that. And, that's what you want to do when you write your context points. You write how it proves something in the text. I will use this in my essays as evidence for Stevenson's main point of the book being his wish to criticise or defy religion in England for the control they exert. Something like that. I think that's quite rushed what I've written there. But I hope you get the gist. Then literary context is quite advanced. It's more talking about what's going on in other books at the time. Don't look at that yet. I will talk a little bit about that on Thursday, but I wouldn't worry looking about it yet. We're thinking about Gothic. That's more for the form there. So focus on historical context and autobiographical context, and watch the Mr. Everything English video. And then probably after Thursday, because that's already a lot after Thursday before your exam, I would like for you to take one character question and one theme from physics maths tutor, and then write a very detailed plan for each one. Detailed plan, you've got the quotes, you've got the context you're going to use, you've got the analysis you're going to use. Because I want to see where we're at, where you struggle with, what we can improve and what's really good. When we're looking for those things, it's for you to know as well, okay? To know where you're at. So you feel a little bit more confident going into the exam. But definitely we're going to try and do that maybe at the weekend, next weekend, before exam week, okay? I won't talk much longer because I don't want this to drag on and you not watch it. I hope you watch it all. Anyway, how do I end this? I don't actually know how I finish this. Good luck. Oh, how do I stop it?